You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
What's going on, U.S. Cellular customers? I've got good news, so don't hit skip, at least not yet. I'm talking about their special customer event, Us Days. What is Us Days? It means exclusive offers just for their customers, just to say thanks, like $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. No, I didn't just misread that. They must really like you. Us Days at U.S. Cellular, exclusive offers just for you, just to say thank you. Right now, U.S. Cellular customers get $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. Terms apply.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
All right, so I want to run through, let me start with this. First of all, welcome to Packernet and all that good stuff. This is, I think, the first time I'm going to try this. We're going to do a whole episode on YouTube. And if you're listening on the podcast, then just ignore all of this. I want to go through some news and notes before we get to the Packer stuff, but I want to preface the plan for today. I made a YouTube video recently kind of talking about Bears fans and some of the nonsense, and I mentioned how, I talked to Zach, great dude, does a good job, didn't mean to make him the bad guy, it just worked out that way, whatever. But the point is, and I even got feedback on YouTube, and it's probably different on YouTube and other places than it is on the podcast, because everybody that listens to the podcast knows I'm the old angry curmudgeon, and that's just what I do. But the whole thing was like, I was very negative. I was so dark, And in reality, that is the case. Some people are, you're just a freaking homer talking about the Bears. Well, yeah, a little bit. But I'm also just a skeptic. I do that to Packer fans all the time, too. It's like, dude, Dontavian Wicks is going to be a 1. It's like, maybe. Jordan Love. I didn't believe Jordan Love till forever. And even now, I'm like, I totally believe, like, 75%. The point today is to lean into it a little bit. It's to stop apologizing for being optimistic and just be excited. You know what I mean? But anyways, we got news and notes first. This just came up. I wasn't going to talk about this, but we talked about it before, that there was some, I think, class action lawsuit against the NFL for their pricing or whatever. Ari Mirov says a federal judge in California has found the NFL liable and ordered it to pay $4 billion in residential class damages and $96 million in commercial class damages in the Sunday Ticket case. The NFL is appealing the decision. Now, I don't put a lot of stock into this. Some federal judge out in California, which I would assume has some of the more strict kind of whatever, they're going to appeal this, and somebody will probably throw it out. But I just want my stance on this to be crystal clear. This is a disaster. As much as on the surface it might be like, bro, get those Sunday ticket prices down, man. You know what I mean? That'd be great. I would love it. You're talking $4 billion in damages. That's getting passed down to the teams too, right? That they're going to have to pay. I mean, it's going to be like COVID all over again, where nobody has money, and there's going to be a freeze on cap increases, and it's just going to be a freaking disaster. I don't want that. So, yeah, count me as all the way out on that one. All right, so moving on to what I was more so planning on. Official trailer of Hard Knocks offseason with the New York Giants just dropped. So I just wanted to remind everybody that we've got this thing coming out. It's not like they're paying me to promote it or whatever, but just any offseason content is good content. But this is going to premiere July 2nd. You're going to see episodes airing every Tuesday through July 30th. It's going to cover Joe Schoen and the GM and all that stuff. It is going to be the scouting combine, free agency, NFL draft, and team minicamp. And one of the other things at the end of this, there is, let's start with this. This is Pro Football Talk. Saquon Barkley claims Giants didn't give him an offer to return. He says, "Let me educate some of you fans here," Barkley said. "I can't bail or become a traitor if I never got an offer to come back. So I went to the organization. I felt that was the best, and already being here for a month, I'm excited to be an Eagle. Go Birds." So he says he never got an offer. Now, there is a clip that they tease at the end of this in which Joe Schoen, the GM, says on the phone, "Saquon, can you give me your word on that, or are you not going to give us a chance?" Now, we don't have all the context, so maybe there's more to it than that. It's possible that he was already, in the works with the Eagles or whatever, so it's like he didn't get the contract, he goes to the Eagles, and then they call him in desperation or something. But still, sounds like maybe that wasn't exactly the case. So that'll become some kind of juicy nonsense, you know what I'm talking about? And then we got this. Sportskeeda, Pro Football, tweeted out, "There have been discussions around the league among certain owners about a separate salary cap for just quarterbacks with the growing contracts. Let me also say that I find this to be, and I don't know all the details, a terrible decision. I can't imagine why anybody would want to do. To me, there are like 5 teams that want this, and nobody else wants it. This is stupid, and it makes absolutely no sense. And from what I understand as of right now, there is really no support for this around the NFL. The NFL Players Union is not a fan of it. There's concerns about whether or not that would lead to a separate union for quarterbacks, which would then fragment out to separate players' unions for different individual positions and all that stuff. Let me just lay out the most obvious reason why this is stupid. This is going to make it impossible for teams that don't have a quarterback to compete. Plain and simple. It's already impossible for teams that don't have a quarterback to compete. The best teams in the NFL are the teams that have quarterbacks, pretty much unanimously, with very few exceptions. If you have a separate salary cap for quarterbacks, that means that everybody has a separate salary cap for the rest of their roster. Meaning the Chiefs paying Pat Mahomes and the Jaguars paying Trevor Lawrence and the Packers paying Jordan Love. And don't get me wrong, I'm rooting for this once we pay Jordan Love because it means we're going to dominate everybody. They're not going to have a chance. We all have the same salary cap to build the rest of the roster. Listen, the only way teams that suck can compete is the fact that they're not being weighed down by this ridiculous contract. Now, if it ever got to the point where teams with elite quarterbacks can't compete, where the Chiefs are just completely ruined because they can't field a football team, then you're going to have to talk about something like that, at least to some degree. Maybe there's like a baseline minimum of cap or even kind of like, of the top 53 or the top 51 or whatever. You could say there's a portion that doesn't count on the salary cap or something. I don't know. 20 million gets knocked off of there. But as of right now, that's not the case. The teams with all the quarterbacks are the teams that's winning. Now you're saying that the Chiefs are going to have the exact same budget to build their team as the who doesn't have a quarterback right now? The Vikings, I guess. The Vikings who really don't have a quarterback. So that's not even a benefit anymore. Like, yeah, but at least we're not paying anybody, so we can do this and and if Darnold takes off or having a rookie quarterback or whatever, that's a big bet. It's not a benefit anymore because you don't have extra money. You have the same amount of money as everybody. That's stupid. That's dumb. It's ridiculous. Again, it's the only way that other teams can be competitive. It's a massive handicap to the teams that have the best quarterbacks. And again, I understand if you're the NFL and you're saying, I want to make sure that the teams with the best quarterbacks are the winners. I want the Chiefs to be winning. I want the Bills to be winning. I want the Packers to be winning. Okay, fine. They are. You don't need to make it even easier on them by saying you get a separate salary cap. The other issue, and I don't know how this would work, but it seems to me that what you would have to do, because there's not just going to be extra money. They're not going to say, let's just on top of that, let's just give them an extra, I don't know, $50 million for quarterbacks, or 55, 60, whatever per year, however much it's going to end up being. They're not just going to give extra money to each team, which means they're going to cut out of the pool, meaning some teams are going to probably have less salary cap because they have this allotted quarterback money, but they're not going to use it. So essentially their stuff just gets thrown in the garbage. It's such a stupid proposal. And even if it's, well, that's not how it's going to work, then at the end of the day, you still have the situation where it's an unbelievably unfair advantage for teams that have really good quarterbacks, which is already an unfair advantage to have a really good quarterback. So the whole thing is absolutely stupid. All right, so I think that's it for the non-Packers stuff. Couple Packers things that are not a part of what we're doing quite yet today. David Bakhtiari continues his assault on turf. He says, some nice fresh grass at AT&T Stadium, as they post a picture of a soccer match that took place at AT&T Stadium. They put out some nice grass. He says, some nice fresh grass at AT&T Stadium. Haters will flood with excuses, but if the owners want to do grass fields, they can get it done, which, of course, is true. We've already talked about that. It seems, I went and looked up the data myself. It was kind of conflicting, but it does look like there are increased injuries. I know it seems like common sense, but there was some dispute. There's people out there that are like, that's not what the data says, so I just want to go check for myself. And because I'm stupid, I already forgot exactly how that goes, but it is my recollection. It's kind of weird. Like, it's not always the same, and it kind of depends on this, that, or the other, but overall, in the aggregate, I think it does, you do see a pretty steep increase in injuries. But I partially also point this out because one of the things that we recently talked about with David Bakhtiari is, where is he going to end up? And I said, I don't think it's going to be, with the Jets or even with Dallas, which seems like the most obvious decision. He should go to Dallas. You got Mike McCarthy there. They need the help at tackle. It would just be, like a glove. As much as, obviously it'd be great to have him in Green Bay, but that seems to have, that ship has sailed. But I don't know, man. It would just be such an odd thing for him to go on this crusade of, this is the worst possible thing, this is terrible, and then just sign with the team anyways. I mean, what it does is it incentivizes teams to not do it, right? If David Bakhtiari can officially say, I refuse to play at places like this, and try to talk to other people about that as well, that may get teams like Dallas to say, okay, you know what, let's go ahead and do it. But if he's just going to sign off, then all the talking has been for nothing. So there's that. And then we've got the official training camp schedule here, 2024 training camp schedule. So if you're planning on heading up to Lambeau Field to catch a practice, here is your practice schedule. So it starts July 22nd. So we have less than a month of time to fill, to talk about nonsense, to argue about nonsense. And don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to it. I'm always down to argue about nonsense. But less than a month until we see some I say actual football, but you know what I mean. Who's calling me right now? I don't know that number. So we got usually these 3-day stretches here. So 22nd, 3rd, and 4th, 26th, 7, 8, 30, 31, and then August 1st. So those are your 3 days, 1 day break, 3 days, 1 day break, 3 days, 1 day break. And then family night, Saturday the 3rd. If you have not been to family night, I would encourage you to go check it out. I'm hopeful to get back there sometime for family night. It was a cool experience, but my youngest my youngest at the time, my second youngest now, she was an absolute terror. And it was brutal. It was awful. She was a disaster. It's very late, so if you have a kid that's a problem child, let's talk about terrible twos. It's not terrible twos, dude. I thought maybe it was just one of my kids. It's all of my kids. I have 4 kids. I can confirm. Twos are fine. Threes are a problem. Maybe it's something that's evolved with time, with kids not developing or breaking down as quickly as they used to. I have no idea. But We don't have terrible twos. We have three-nagers is what we have around here. And my youngest is now 3, so she's kind of having some issues. But at least I know by 4 she'll be fine. But if you have a 3-year-old, maybe wait a year. I'm just saying. But it is a good time. And then you got... That's when the practices start to slow down a little bit. They get some extra breaks because we got preseason games actually mixed in, and some of this stuff, it's not necessarily breaks. It's kind of behind the curtain and whatnot. But you got 2 days, and then on Saturday you've got the Browns. That's an away game. Then the next week you have 2 days, and then you have on Sunday the away game against the Broncos. Then you got break, practice, break, joint practice with the Baltimore Ravens. And then the 24th is going to be at home against the Baltimore Ravens. Remember, they kind of alternate between whether you get multiple home games during the season or during the preseason. And so the Packers get 2 home games during the season, so they're going to have 2 away games. In this case, it's going to be the first 2 against the Browns and the Broncos. So that's all of that. What else? Oh, one final thing before we take a break. This is some news here from Richard Ryman over at PackersNews.com. Stadium Board agrees to help Green Bay Packers pay for third Lambeau Field locker room. This confused the ever-loving crap out of me. I had no idea why this would be a thing. But essentially, the Green Bay Brown County Professional Football Stadium District approved a $2.97 million disbursement to the Green Bay Packers for construction of a third locker room at Lambeau Field. Apparently, the reason that they need to do this is for events. So for college football games, soccer games, World Cup stuff, whatever kind of things where you would need a locker room. And it kind of confused me because it's like, well, we have 2. Why do they need more than 2? The Packers use their locker room year-round. So in the past, when we've done this before, like for the Wisconsin-LSU game back in 2016, the Green Bay Packers essentially used the away locker room, and then what you can see in this picture here is them setting up a temporary locker room. So they threw up this stuff, threw up some fake lockers, or not fake, they're real. You can use them. It's not digital or anything. But these temporary lockers, and so it's kind of a way to continue doing what they have been doing with Mark Murphy and all that in hosting events, right? We got the draft, we got Titletown, we're really building things out. And so one of the inconveniences or hindrances to the Packers being able to host events, or at least sporting events, is the fact that they don't have a third locker room, which, again, I didn't know was a thing. Now we know it's a thing. So $3 million has been approved for the Packers to build out that locker room. All right. That's it for this first segment. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll be back to start looking at some hype, a little bit of hype, starting with Jordan Love, and then a little bit about the wide receivers. We'll be right back. What's going on, U.S. Cellular customers? I've got good news, so don't hit skip, at least not yet. I'm talking about their special customer event, Us Days. What is Us Days? It means exclusive offers just for their customers, just to say thanks. Like $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. No, I didn't just misread that. They must really like you. Us Days at U.S. Cellular, exclusive offers just for you, just to say thank you. Right now, U.S. Cellular customers get $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. Terms apply. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Jewelry can say many things on your wedding day. As a wedding band, it can say, "This is a forever symbol of our forever love." As a gift to your wedding party, it can say, "Thanks for standing up there with us." Blue Nile can help you find the piece that says it all and says it beautifully, with expert guidance and a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Go to BlueNile.com and experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999. That's BlueNile.com.
All right, so this is the Paul Farrington show. Obviously, we talked about them quite a bit. I'm just using this to kind of kick things off a little bit because it's kind of what kind of triggered it in my mind. The main, well, let me just let him do the talking first.
And when you take a look over the course of Packers MVP quarterbacks, all the big ones have done it. Bart Starr did it in 1966. Brett Favre, I actually didn't realize this until the other day. I was on his Pro Football, what was it, the Pro Football Data Reference, yeah. 3 straight MVPs, 1995, 96, 97. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers, 4 MVPs, 2011, 14, 20, and 21. Begs the question, if Jordan Love is going to be the next great Packer quarterback, when can we see this jump into elite status? Now, Brian Gutekunst came out and he said the sky's the limit for this guy. Offensive coordinator comes out. He said this night and day from 2023 to 2024. Last year, we kind of had to keep a leash on everybody. We weren't sure exactly how much of the plays we could run. You weren't sure. You're running new installments, teaching him. And now the scary thing for the NFC North, for us Vikings fans, for the whole league, when you talk about the Packers, is this second-year starter has a year under his belt and confidence. And his
all right, I never know when to cut those things off, but look, the bottom line is this. I mean, I feel like it's weird as a Packer fan. I'll speak for myself. I'm guessing I'm not alone, but I'll just say for myself. As a Packer fan, having had, I wasn't around for Bart Starr, but Brett Favre and then Aaron Rodgers, who both in their times, for at least a period of time, were considered the best in the entire NFL. Not for their entire careers, but at a period of time. And for most of their careers, if not all their careers, were considered one of the best throughout their entire career. I don't know if we or I was essentially neutered by Pat Mahomes when he came in, and it's just like, nobody will ever be better. He's better than Rodgers. He's the best thing we've ever seen. And so it's like, nobody will ever compete with that. Obviously, he's the best and all that stuff, or what? But why wouldn't we assume that not only is Jordan going to be good, because that's kind of like the question, good, very good, whatever. Why don't we believe he can be the best? Why don't we believe, again, speaking for myself, why don't I believe, or why does it feel, why do I feel like I'm being a homer if I start talking MVP, if I start talking best in the entire league, better than Mahomes, better than Josh Allen, better than Burrow, better than Lamar, better than whoever it is you like? It shouldn't feel that homerish. It's not like it's never happened before. I mean, look at some of the guys who have been considered MVPs. You're telling me that we can't be competing with guys like Brock Purdy? And it's no disrespect to Brock Purdy, who I thought had a good career, or a good season. But if he can do it, why would... I mean, we watched an MVP caliber quarterback last year. That's what we watched. So why can't we believe it? Well, I want to lean into it a little bit. Today, we're going to believe... Here is Mina Kimes giving her 2 cents on Jordan Love in the contract situation and why You just need to get it done.
From Love's perspective, he should obviously try to maximize this throw. He's worth the bet on himself and won. From the Packers' perspective, I've seen enough with Jordan Love. Get the deal done and pay what it takes because he's that dude. Second half of the season, he was one of the 3 best quarterbacks in football. And watching it wasn't artificial. It wasn't just schemed up. Although Matt LaFleur is a great play caller, he was making high degree of difficulty throws in clutch situations. I think he has all of the tools to be one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL, and I don't think that's hyperbolic, Ryan, based on what I saw last year.
No, you're absolutely.
Well, and that's all true. Listen, again, I understand there's going to be Bears, Vikings, Lions, and 49ers fans and everybody else out there going, yeah, biased Packer fan. Whatever. We all watched the guy. As a fan base that watched Aaron Rodgers, I think we have a pretty good gauge of what a really talented quarterback making really good throws looks like. It's why we were able to make fun of the Bears so much with Justin Fields when they put together their highlight reels. It's why we made fun of Tom Brady and his highlight reel, which looked like nothing. He's not doing it. He's just throwing to open guys like whoop-de-doo. Like there's no madness happening here. On top of the fact that, everything she said is true. This isn't just a scheme thing. This isn't just Matt LaFleur scheming guys open. You're watching a guy do things that you look at and go, that's not normal. There's a difference between being efficient and taking what's in front of you and just doing a good job, which is really all I asked for from Jordan, to what we saw, which is a next level guy. And this is also coming from somebody, myself, who said he's either going to be a bust or he's going to be really good. I don't see an in-between. So it shouldn't be that big of a logical leap. This is what Jordan Love is. Now, exactly where it falls on the spectrum, I don't know, but that's who gives a crap? Because nobody is perfectly elite every single year. He's going to have some years that it's like he is the MVP. There's going to be other years where it's like, pretty good. Yeah, it's Jordan. Jordan's pretty good. But as she said, he has all the tools. He does. There are some guys that are just not built that way. They're talented pocket passers with strong arms, and they can do certain things. There are only a small select group that can do what Jordan can do. Period. He has really special talent and potential. Here is Mike Tannenbaum, I think, right? Real Tannenbaum? Yeah, Mike Tannenbaum talking about Jordan Love.
Outside of Patrick Mahomes, if we, the 4 of us, were running an NFL team today, there is nobody on the planet I'd rather have than Jordan Love, period, end of sentence. 25 years old, can make all the throws, 6'4", high character, high processor, can make people miss. The sky is the limit. If he was an IPO, it'd be like buying NVIDIA 3 years ago.
Okay.
He is by far to me the player that has the most sustained upside. Do I love Josh Allen? Of course I love Josh Allen. Josh Allen takes a lot of big hits. C.J. Stroud, love C.J. Stroud. Jordan Love's been in the league a little bit longer than C.J. Stroud. There are some other people in that conversation, but when you talk about sustained excellence, to me, it's Jordan Love and then everybody else. Outside of Patrick Mahomes.
Well, and we pretty sure we went over that on the YouTubes recently, looking at Jordan Love starting in week 9, and not even starting in week 3, but if you start in week 9, when it clicked, he was QB1, maybe QB2, maybe, depending on what specific metric, but highest passing grade was Jordan Love. So to act like that's crazy, and by the way, CJ Stroud is down the list. It's not even like it was neck and neck between Jordan and Stroud. It wasn't. It was Jordan and Brock and Dak and Mahomes, and CJ Stroud was not in that group. CJ Stroud had a good year. It was not as good as Jordan Love. He was not as good. Period. And on top of that, go look at the Texans. He had like 2 top 5 wide receivers on his team, if you look at PFF grade. I'm not saying Stroud didn't have a good year and that he's not a good quarterback, but the idea that we're just going to do this big eye roll, like, better than Stroud? I don't think so. Bro, Jordan was better. I'm sorry you don't know that. I'm sorry if you don't like the Packers and you don't want to believe that, but that's just the reality. And no, it's not just Matt LaFleur. And guess what? Even if you want to believe that, fine, I'll concede it. You're wrong, just like you were wrong when you said Matt LaFleur wasn't a good coach. It's really just Aaron Rodgers dragging the team, and now you want to completely flip that on its head because you just refuse to acknowledge anything. You're just making frickin' excuses for whatever you want to be true. you're wrong again. But you know what? It doesn't even matter. Fine. It's Matt LaFleur. It's Matt LaFleur doing what? Making Jordan Love the best quarterback in football. So go ahead and have your little fake win about he's not actually I don't really care. You're wrong. If you just watch him throw footballs, you can see that. But it is what it is. Here is another clip, compliments of our friend Clayton over at Packers Total Access, or Packers_access on the Twitters. It's 2.5 minutes long. This is Wilde and Tausch having a sit-down with Greg Cosell.
Tape than anybody, and you do a great job of illustrating what you see. What did you see from the beginning of the Jordan Love era, which was up and down? What were the biggest reasons we saw him really... I'm going to give a take here. I think he was one of the best quarterbacks the back half of last season. What he was able to do, the throws that he made, the consistency that he played with. What was the difference last year?
I got two answers to that, because I actually watched a ton of Jordan Love a couple of weeks ago, because that's what I kind of do in the off season. I go back and rewatch a lot of things, because during the season I can't watch, let's say 250 dropbacks in a row, because I'm going week to week. In the off season I can do that. But I'm going to start by saying I think Jordan Love is one of the 3 or 4 most gifted quarterbacks in the league in terms of pure physical talent. But I think there's 2 things that really showed up to me, and there may be more, coaches who really, that work with him know him better than I. But just watching the tape, I thought there were 2 things from a developmental standpoint that stood out. I thought he showed a much better calculated pre-snap understanding, recognizing defenses, understanding how to use his cadence. And I think there was probably no better snapshot of that than the touchdown he threw to Wicks against the Cowboys in the playoff game. I also thought that there's another great example of that, too, just understanding what he was looking at pre-snap. He threw a touchdown, I think it might have been, was it week 18? No, maybe it was against the Vikings late in the season. Was that week 17 or somewhere around there?
Week 17, that would have been, yeah.
Yeah, where he threw a touchdown to Reed, and the Vikings changed their coverage. They had late coverage rotation, and he read it instantaneously, and he hit Reed on the seam versus what became cover 2. But the second point I wanted to make was he just became a better processor and decision maker from the pocket. He saw things more cleanly. He saw things more quickly, because that's ultimately, what you're trying to do as a quarterback is you're trying to win pre-snap, which is not going to happen all the time. Obviously, there's a defense out there, but you're trying to get as much information as you can pre-snap so that as you're dropping back, because all that happens really fast, as Mark can attest, you're not thinking it through. It just intuitively happens, and he got much better at that.
So look, the whole point of the only real question that needs to be asked is what we saw in the second half of Jordan Love, of the season last year with Jordan Love, is that real? And what you just heard from Greg Cosell, his assessment, is that first half compared to second half, roughly, is Jordan Love when he isn't able to fully process the game pre-post snap, and then Jordan Love when he is able to process the game pre-post snap. So what we saw is Jordan Love being Jordan Love, doing Jordan Love things, while also being able to process at a high level. So can he do it? Yes. And what does it look like when Jordan Love is playing with confidence and with the ability to read defenses pre and post snap? We saw what it looked like. It looked like from week 9 through the end of the season. And what was that? Maybe the best quarterback in football. Now, I'm not saying that I know that in 2024 he's going to be the number 1 quarterback or that he's going to win MVP or any of that. Partially because MVP doesn't necessarily correlate to best quarterback, but the bottom line is he has the talent. And there's every reason to believe that we've got a guy who is a top 5, top 3, top 2, not 2 quarterback and will be for the next 10 to 15 years. And with that will very likely come MVPs, and there's a good chance will come with, hopefully at least, a Super Bowl attached to it. I know the assumption is you got a good quarterback, you win Super Bowls. Unfortunately, there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the NFL, and one of the good quarterbacks keeps winning the Super Bowl every year, which means none of the other ones do. So I'm not making any guarantees with that, but yeah, I listen, I think there's a lot of smart people looking at this who are saying what, and again, I'm cautiously pessimistic about stuff. I look at it and I go, I don't have really a good argument. I think it makes the most sense that what we saw from Jordan Love's second half is real. And, people can argue, well, he wasn't the best quarterback. He wasn't the second best. He wasn't even, say whatever you freaking want. Just tell me that the second half is real. If we can agree to that, then you can call him whatever you want to call him. You can call him the 10th best quarterback if you want to say stupid nonsense. Go ahead. It doesn't matter because it's not going to make a difference when Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers go on to decimate everybody, go to the playoffs every single year. If it makes you feel better to call him the 10th best, it doesn't make a difference. Forgot what I was even talking about, but the bottom line is, I think the Packers, there is every single reason to believe that Jordan Love is the real deal. And if the rest of the national media doesn't want to recognize that what he was in the second half, which is not again, small sample size, 3 games, 4 games, 5 games. No, it wasn't. It was like 12 games from week 9 on. And again, you can go to week 3 and he was still one of the best quarterbacks in football. In fact, he go through the entire season. Even through 8 weeks of him not playing very well, he was still one of the best quarterbacks in football. He's the top 10 quarterback. Even including his rough games, including the San Francisco 49ers game where he threw the 2 picks. But I think what we have is... I would be shocked if we don't see him consistently in the top 3. Consistently in the top 3. And consistency is going to be the key because we did see some down swings in there. There were a couple games even after week 9 where it kind of was like, what the heck was that? That rough patch where the defense was struggling, but also Jordan was having a rough, I don't know if it was the Giants or Tampa Bay or whatever. He was kind of struggling through that. 49ers game was a dip, obviously. Everybody has dips. Pat Mahomes has dips. It's a question of how many and how low do you go? But the other point is with Jordan Love, the highs are really high, and there's a lot of them. Some quarterbacks, they'll have 1 or 2 games that maybe tick into the 90s. He had 4 in a small window. He had 4. This guy's going to do some damage, some serious damage. We'll take a break. We'll come back and take a look at some thoughts on the wide receivers as well.
Have you ever experienced turbulence on a flight and wondered why?
And you can see all the terrain around you. You've got no issue with visibility or anything?
No, everything's PG.
Maybe you've sat on the tarmac for hours wondering why your plane isn't moving.
Well, we're outside here. They're saying the ramp is closed. They won't let us park because of Air Force One.
Listen in on the conversations between pilots and air traffic controllers on the Air Traffic Out of Control podcast.
512 Whiskey declaring an emergency. There's smoke in the cabin. I need to make a landing right now on 31 left.
We have the most interesting, wild, and funny ATC recordings you will ever hear. Check out Air Traffic Out of Control wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
All right, let's rip through the wide receivers here real quick, and we'll get out of here. So it starts off with this. PFF put up the top 5 NFC receiving cores going into the 2024 season. Chad Johnson says, so no Bengals? And the respondent down here says, Ocho, it says NFC, calm down. Chad Ochocinco says, then the Packers should be there. That's how it started. Then he starts getting ripped up in the comment section because anything positive about the Packers, you don't know football, you don't know this, da-da-da-da-da-da. There's just this, it's funny how much everybody lags in these things. And I think it's just laziness in part. It's, again, we know basic stats, we know fantasy football, and we know what the television tells me to think. That's about it. And people look at the basic stats and they say the Packers barely won enough games to get into the playoffs, and then they got beat. And Jordan Love, over the course of the season, his statistics were XYZ, and none of the Packers guys are desirable on my fantasy football team, so you must be an idiot, Chad Ochocinco. Then we get him responding to tripping. Not one person in Green Bay has proven. Chad Johnson says, did you watch effing football last year? The Packers' entire receiving core is the SHIT. Watson, Dobbs, Wicks, and Melton are all proven. The heck are you talking about? Later on, he says, Jaden Reed, son, learn the effing name now. Gosh darn it, casual fans. There's a lot of editing going on there trying to figure out how to get that out. So he specifically highlights Jaden Reed and how great he is. Here is a podcast. This is, it's called Pocket Presence. Apparently Kurt Benkert is one of the hosts on the show. I don't know if it's his show or what. But he and Tyler Webb are on here interviewing Hollywood Brown, current NFL wide receiver. Here is a little bit of that exchange.
Hollywood, you mentioned a couple guys that you receivers will watch and maybe don't get the love publicly. Anybody that jumps to mind that fans aren't necessarily putting in their top 5 list, but you see him and you're like, they deserve more respect?
Elijah Moore, Cole. He's nice.
Okay. Situationally stuck a little bit.
He's crazy nice. Who else can I say?
Oh, crying out
Braden
loud.
has amazed me. He's so...
Sorry about that.
And we put him on the spot here.
The Packers receiving court, because I be messing up their names. But they be cooking. They be cooking.
Bro, Dontavian Wicks.
When I be watching their games, I be like, who are them? They all going crazy. They all getting open. They all running nice, crisp routes. Greg Dortch.
So, again, right, asking an NFL wide receiver on the spot, who are some guys that are good but don't get the recognition. He's got to think about it. He mentions somebody. Then he goes, actually, come to think about it, the Packers receivers, and just lists the whole group, right? Like, you're watching it, you're not expecting it. Again, you're not expecting it because nobody's talking about them. And they're all young, and they haven't really put their name on the map yet. You turn it on, and you don't expect that level of talent coming from this pile of guys that are unknown. And by the way, why do you think Chad Ochocinco just randomly starts screaming, Jaden Reed, learn the name? He just watched him. He obviously just watched these. I mean, of course he watched a little bit here and there, but he sat down, he watched Jaden Reed and was like, holy crap. Holy crap. That's the point. What else we got here? Here is the final one here. This is from PFF, 33rd team posted this. 2024 difference makers.
Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love has been saying, look, they don't have a number one wide receiver. All of their wide receivers are really good. But I think the guy that could actually emerge as their number one wide receiver is Dontavian Wicks. Last season, he was, a 5th-round draft pick. He was one of the lowest resource-intensive guys on that team. All the resources have been on Christian Watson before that, even, Jaden Reed and the tight ends. But Dontavian Wicks has got some real ability about him and emerged as the season wore on. And I think was kind of forcing his way into that number one conversation. Maybe he can't become a Devontae Adams, but could he become, their Greg Jennings, their Jordy Nelson, a true number one receiver for them who can do big things? Reminds me, he's like a poor man's Justin Jefferson. He got that kind of weird running style, sort of unusual movement pattern, and he was just a playmaker for this team last year. So I think Wicks is going to continue that ascension and become a real number one receiver for that Packers offense.
Hey, that shows just how deep the Packers are, because if you ask me who's their best receiver, I would probably think about Romeo Doubs. I would think about Christian Watson breaking out, and you're picking Wicks, which is fine, but they're deep at receiver. Jaden Reed, who you mentioned, Packers have a lot of options there. All right, let me round it out with this.
So, I mean, first of all, he's exactly right. You can have varying answers to that question. I don't think a lot of people close to the team would say Dobbs, although, again, that's not necessarily fair because he was the number one wide receiver. Wicks is a popular pick. Reed is a popular pick. Watson is maybe not a super popular pick, but it's maybe my pick. But then, as I said before, the guy that everybody's forgetting about, that has the potential to be a real premier receiver on this team, even if the stats aren't there, if you look at, for example, PFF grade, the most talented, the guy that's doing all the right things the most, Luke Musgrave. And you can say Kraft or whatever if you want. I really think Musgrave has the potential to be a super special talent. Now, not all of these are going to go that way. I'm not going to sit here and massively over-homer it up and say, Wicks is going to be elite, and Musgrave is going to be elite, and Kraft is going to be elite, and Reed is going to be elite, and Watson's going to be elite. I'm not doing that. What I am saying, though, is these guys are massively underrated. You have an incredibly gifted play caller in Matt LaFleur. You've got Jordan Love, who's playing like a top 5, I'm being generous here, top 5 quarterback. And then you have guys, and you say things like, oh, you got a pile of twos. That may be fair to some degree, but don't underestimate, first of all, how talented some twos are in the league, right? If you have 2 twos or 3 twos or 4 twos, that's really not a terrible situation to be in. But what I'm also saying is I think we might actually be talking about maybe some low-end number 1 wide receivers, right? If we extend out the definition of a number 1, not talking about the top 10 guys, we're talking, let's say, top 32. We might have some top 20, top 25, top 32 receivers on this team. I think Wicks, I think Reed, I think Watson, I think maybe Dobbs. Musgrave isn't a receiver, but I think grade-wise he could probably fit in there. I'm not saying they all will, but I don't think there's a single guy that if you were to say which one will not be and probably cannot be a top 32 receiver, I'm not picking anybody. I'm not. Maybe Bo Melton is the one that I'm the most out on, that I think a lot of fans are really high on. And I could even be wrong about that. I don't know. But no, I think that we witnessed the 2008 Packers, and we're about to go into the 2009 Packers season, and I think this is going to be the coming out year for the Green Bay Packers, is what it's going to be. And I don't need Bears fans clipping that and making that into something that it's not. No, but I think this is a breakout year for the Packers. And that's not even to say necessarily that a lot of people are so much better. I just think if you have a full season, not a half a season, a full season of Jordan Love playing like he did last year, a full season, which we pretty much had, but we didn't use him as much because we didn't know how good he was, of Wicks. If we have a full healthy season of Christian Watson, he's already a pretty elite talent. He just can't stay on the field. A full season or close to it of Christian Watson. If we can get Reed humming the way he was for a full season, if we can get Musgrave going the way he was for a full season or close to it, if we can get Kraft and we can get the running backs, if we get all these things going, starting in week 1 through the end of the season, I don't think we're going to end this. I don't think next year at this time anybody's going to be talking about anything other than this Packers team is one of the scariest offenses in football, if not the best offense in football. That's where I stand on it. It's not going to be a question. The only real question sitting here today is, where does the defense rank? Is this going to be like the 2011 Packers, where you've got this top-end, high-octane offense, but a defense that's just dragging the team down? Or are they finally going to figure out this defensive side of things, finally get that going, and actually start to look like, the 96, 97 Packers, the 2010 Packers, a team that has a really scary offense led by a premier quarterback and a solid complementary defense. That's not the case in the 90s. That was a elite defense. But at the very least, we're talking a top 10 style defense, which I think is necessary if this team is going to go on to win a Super Bowl one of these days. I'm not blaming the defense necessarily for what happened last time. A lot of offensive pieces didn't get the job done, but I just think it's necessary that we have that complementary offensive and defensive piece. I think by the offense feeling like it needs to shoulder more, you start to see more heroic stuff. You see Jordan Love, late and across the middle type stuff. Anyways, that's it. I'm going to leave it at that. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
America's favorite place to watch football is Stadium Swim. located at the Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Catch all the biggest games at a viewing experience built for sports fans. Chill in one of our 6 pools on 3 different levels for a perfect view of our massive screen. Plenty of seating options from cozy day beds to private temperature-controlled cabanas. Stadium Swim. Book your spot today at circalasvegas.com.